Well, it's time now to have that conversation around what's taking place in the construction industry. And with me in studio, I do have the Association of South African Quantity Surveyors President, and that's Newton Baloyi. We do expect Gregory Mofokeng to join us on the line. So I think let's start the conversation with you. Earlier in the week on Thursday, those 7 bodies in the industry meeting, and the sentiment seemed to be that while earnings are pointing to growth in the industry, there are still headwinds that the industry is facing. Let's maybe start the conversation there. What are some of those challenges that the construction industry overall still continues to face in 2024?
Thanks, Tokozo, and greetings to your viewers as well. The conference on Thursday, some of the basic insights that came out from the stats, from the data, is that there is a positive pipeline of projects that are coming, which was very encouraging, and we're very excited about that. It comes, of course, at the back of a deep challenge. There was limited growth over the past several years. And just to give you a bit of a perspective in terms of that, you know, as an association of South African Quantity Surveyors, from 2019, we used to have about 700 members who were practices. That is, these are companies. But there's been a dip. We're now sitting with close to 480. So we are
almost half.
It's 33% down. So we are very much excited about the outlook, but we come from a very deep challenge, and we need much more than that. Definitely the pipeline is inspiring, it's encouraging, but it's not enough. We need both the pipeline, but secondly, we also need to close the leakages. One of the biggest challenges that came from the insights that were shared last week is the fact that including the budgeting, more money will go into local government, but the leakages are predominantly in local government. So we are very excited about the pipeline, but we are also very concerned about the leakages. Just to put those leakages into perspective, we hosted the Auditor General's office on Monday, and some of the stats they shared from the analysis of close to 137 projects is that over 51% of the projects overrun their budgets, and more than 68% overrun their time by close to 13 to 46 months on average. It's unacceptable. So we sit with a situation where infrastructure is a catalyst to economic development. However, we don't have the capacity to deliver the infrastructure, especially at local government level. And that is the biggest constraint that came out. So we need to have the right people in those seats. We need to professionalize our government sector. We are sitting with professionals without work. Some are leaving the country. We've got over 220 companies that have closed down. And we are sitting with administrators who don't understand infrastructure, who are actually managing the infrastructure projects. And that's what we sit with. Yeah,
Newton, it seems a lot of trickle effects, so one issue leading into the next. I do see that Gregory Bongane is now with us. Thank you so much for talking to us. Gregory, of course, with the Construction Alliance of South Africa. Thank you so much for making time for us online. And we have started this conversation around the headwinds that the construction industry is facing. And out of that conference that took place on Thursday, MDA Attorney is really highlighting some issues that the industry is facing. One of those is concerns around the amendments to the public procurement bill. Gregory, can you just give us some insights into that and whether you agree with industry leaders being concerned about what that means for the industry?
Well, thank you very much for having us. The amendments to the legislation have been long coming. As you know, several years ago, the Constitutional Court did declare, the triple PFA unconstitutional. So at the moment, we are really looking forward to the new piece of legislation, because currently there is a lot of uncertainty around procurement legislation in the country. There's been a lot of confusion amongst procuring entities, especially those belonging to the state. So we are looking forward to the introduction of the new law. Of course, with the introduction of the new law, there is always concern around how effective the law is going to be, starting with the drafting of that legislation. So there has been a lot of concerns around, certain provisions of the bill, as it is still a bill up until this point. And of course, we are currently trying to get a audience with the National Council of Provinces, which is where the bill is at the moment, to see if there can still be some refinement, of the bill.
And let me bring you back here, Newton, with that bill. The main issue there is really driving transformation in the industry, or that's what it aims to do. But the argument is it might end up squeezing out a lot of those SMEs that are black-owned SMEs. And I think, Gregory, I would want you to weigh in on this as well. Do you see that happening, and what could be what hinders transformation in the industry, getting black independent players to get into the industry?
Yeah, so if you look at the earlier versions of the bill, they were really not clear around this whole issue of transformation. We have worked very hard to make sure that transformation is central to this bill. And if you go through the current iteration of the bill, you will see that Chapter 4 of the bill is now very clear around the whole principle around transformation. As far as the benefit of black contractors, especially the smaller black contractors, is concerned, our view is that definitely they are going to benefit. I know that a lot of people, do refer back to the triple PFA, where there was this 30% subcontracting provision. The current bill does make provision for that as well. And the current bill also promotes, the whole issue around ensuring that black SMMEs are empowered, especially by state organs that are procuring infrastructure services. And one of the issues that we are currently looking at is actually to refine the bill so that it is clear around those SMMEs that should be black-owned, black women-owned, black youth-owned, and so on, so that we clear the confusion around generally SMMEs and the bill to be more specific around black-owned SMMEs.
And Newton, do you think this would help deal with the issue that the industry does face, which is, of course, the construction mafia, who are saying the industry is not being opened up, they're not getting any of the opportunities? Do you think that could help make a dent there?
I think, firstly, we need to frame the problem first. The issue of construction mafia, it's a big challenge in South Africa. It's fire. So you definitely need to bring firefighters and close it down. We welcome the work of government in terms of bringing the police and closing the criminal element around it. But the real essence is economic exclusion. We need to ensure that it's economic inclusion. Now, when you look at the economic inclusion leg of this, the provisions, Chapter 4 of the bill, are encouraging. But there's something that I think we need to review as a country. When you look at our approach to procurement and to transformation, we tend to look at it at a transactional level. It's project by project. We are looking at the tendering entity and whether it is transformed or not. We need to go beyond that. The biggest challenge is, and to give you a basic illustration, if you look at Sekhukhune in Limpopo, it's got 27 operating mines, but it's one of the poorest in the province as a district. What is really the issue? The issue is creating a broader economic inclusion program, and that cannot be done on a transactional basis. So whilst the direction of the bill is going in the right direction, we need to appreciate the fact that procurement is not enough to bring about transformation. The issue of local economic development is the ambit of local government, and we definitely need to bring into the picture local economic development as a program. It is the responsibility of local government to ensure that we create an enabling economic environment for projects and business to come and trade in their localities. They need to promote that. So the aspect of bringing social cohesion, bring the communities together to ensure stability is the ambit of local government. So that becomes a big issue. We need to go beyond the aspect of looking at the tendering entity or the bidders and look at their transformation. That's very important. Transformation is a must happen at that level. But we need to look at what's the impact in the local economy? So the issue of value for money must not just be based on the lowest price, which has been the biggest blunder in the infrastructure sector as it stands now. It's destroying the professionals because of huge discounts. It's destroying, we don't finish our projects because people are underpricing.
Runs out.
So what we need to be dealing with there is to go beyond that and say, what is the real impact of projects on the ground? When we look at value for money, we must look at the socio-economic impact of projects in the locality. One proposal could be better than the next. And if you want to achieve that maximum local economic impact, you cannot achieve it by a contractor arriving. It's too late. It's not the ambit of contractors to stimulate the local economy. It is projects are a catalyst to stimulating the local economy, but it's the local governments that must take this profile, medium-term planning, look at all these projects and begin to formulate a strategy of how to leverage those projects for the next 3, 4, 5 years in order to ensure enabling environment. So to give you a clearer picture of that, in the mining sector, you go look at the local economic development strategies of our municipalities. They've got no idea how to leverage mining to stimulate their local economies, to stimulate manufacturing. You need an ecosystem. So you cannot just give a local entity a job and give them a subcontractor, and they've got no ecosystem to support them in terms of capacity, in terms of financial access to opportunities. Access is one thing, but there's still the capacity building. So I think in South Africa, our outlook of transformation tends to be very transactional, and the bill is very helpful. It's moving in the right direction. But procurement alone is not where the answer lies. We need local economic development.
And I think I'd like to circle back to that on how building that capacity, because I think on Thursday that was the word that I kept hearing. And it's especially concerning when we think that spending on social development is decreasing. Government is getting that local budget, but there's no capacity. So are we just, a hamster going in a wheel? Gregory, to bring you in, just circling back on the SMEs, we are expecting some shifts in the subcontracting landscape. And a lot of entrepreneurs and SMEs, that's really how they get their start in the industries, through subcontracting. Perhaps just give us insights into what these changes that are coming are and how people in the space can really navigate to find those opportunities still to be able to get those projects.
Well, the bill is now making it very clear in terms of how the public entities should, procure services, through main contractors to accommodate the subcontractors. I think previous legislations were not clear on this, but I think the bill is going to make it very clear. And I must say, hasten to say also that, not everything sits in the bill at the moment. So when you look at the bill, you're not going to find all the instruments in the bill. We are going to still, introduce regulations, and a lot of what is going to enable engagement between subcontractors and main contractors, as well as subcontractors and the procuring client entities, will be contained in the regulations. But I think the principle is that, there will be a much more clearer articulation of an involvement between these three parties. It must also be clear that, there will be a lot of added responsibilities to the client, because I think up until this point, clients have always, deferred the issue of subcontractor involvement to the main contractors and have stayed away from that relationship. And I think the shift that we are going to see is that there will be more involvement on the client side to make sure that there is meaningful participation of the subcontractors and that there is no further exploitation of those subcontractors. If one just thinks about it, you'll find that subcontractors, i.e., will be complaining about rates that are not fair, that are given to them by the main contractors. Our expectation is that the regulations will make it very clear that the client will then have a lot of say in terms of the rates that will be agreed upon between the main contractor and the subcontractors, and this will also extend to things such as scope and so on and so forth. But I must also hasten to say that our subcontractors must also come to the party, because we want subcontractors that are active, that are going to be involved in projects. We don't want people that are going to come and just demand work and they do not have the capacity nor the capability to undertake that work. We do not want people who will come and just demand money out of main contractors. We want people that will be fully involved in the project. And we also want people that will be responsible employers. So on the other side, as much as these small employers are going to get opportunities, we also want them to have fair terms and conditions between themselves and their employees, including temporary employees that they will be employing to execute the work that they will be given through the main contractors and the clients. So yes, there's going to be a significant shift, but there will be responsibilities that we expect all the parties to carry in this partnership going forward. Lastly, let me just also hasten to say that when one looks at the public procurement bill, this is not going to be the panacea. And hence I agree that, you need to look at broadly what happens in the procurement space, both in the public and the private sector, because the public sector space is highly regulated. However, we do need to leverage private sector procurement as well in order to deal effectively with issues of economic inclusion.
Gregory, we'll have to leave it there. Time really does fly. I feel there's still so much more to have in this conversation, and we have those GDP numbers out on Tuesday. We'll get a clearer picture of just what's going on in that particular industry. And Newton, I certainly will have you in studio again. Thank you so much for making time for us.